Welcome to the 12th podcast, Discipleship at Home. In the last session, we covered 3 additional discipline tools that are effective in discipling our children. We said we should help our children develop a good work ethic. We shared the importance of displaying Scripture around the home. Then we shared the importance of frequent words of affirmation. Today I would like to talk about conducting regular family devotions. Then I would like to share the biggest obstacle to discipling children at home, along with several solutions. Finally, I would like to conclude this podcast with God's conditional promises of success. Let's talk about family devotions a little bit because we haven't talked about that. But I want you to get the idea that discipling your kids is not about having devotions every day. That's an important piece, but if that's all you do, you're probably not discipling your kids because those teachable moments and using discipline and all the other things we've talked about are all part of the package. But family devotions are something that's good to do. Of course, if you have 2 and 3-year-olds or whatever, or 4-year-olds, it's going to be a couple-minute devotional, something very short. As they get older, you can stretch that out, and the older kids can actually take part in the devotional. One of the things that we have that I wanted to show you, we have some of these. If you want to buy one, you can. It's $24 in the store, but we have them for like $18. But this is Story Through the Bible. And the only reason I bought them is I'd like for you to be aware of this tool. It's written by Walk Through the Bible Ministries, and it's using the principles of Jesus that Jesus used storytelling all the time. And so it's using storytelling with your kids. And so it has, I think it's 52 stories in here. You read the story, and then you tell it. You don't read it to them, you tell it to them. And then afterwards it's got application questions of how to apply it. See, one of the problems in church is kids hear all the lessons about heroes over and over and over. They never really get good application and how to live the Christian life. This takes the stories and helps them to learn how to live the Christian life. And if you have a 5th or 6th grader, you can tell them, read this story, and then you're going to tell it to the kids tomorrow in devotional, and let them do it. And then you handle the discussion time. So this is a real good book that you can pick up. You can order it through Amazon or wherever, but we've got some available if you want to buy one. And then there's a couple other things here too. This is something that's really helpful. This is Big Truths for Young Hearts. I don't have any to sell to you, but you can, you know what I always do? I go to Amazon and I look for used books, and I usually buy like new or very good quality, and this was bought used. It's like a new book pretty much. I've had it for a couple years now, but this is doctrine taught on childhood level. And so you can take this, you can actually read it to the child. The chapters are fairly short, and it teaches doctrine about God and about different key doctrines, and helps them learn what they believe on the child's level. So this is really good. It's written by a professor, seminary professor, but he did a good job as he wrote that and broke it down for children. This is something that's really good too. It's called Passing the Baton. And I would encourage you to get this. Especially if you're very limited, and let's say you and your spouse are both working, and you have to because of finances or whatever. This helps you to find ways to have impact on your kids in a limited amount of time. And there's 100 different things you can do, and this has some good ideas. You might buy that. I bought this used also. Passing the Baton by Gray Hauser. You can look at those if you would like a little bit later. But in family devotions, reading through and singing some of the great hymns. Get a hymn book. Maybe the church has some old hymn books that they can give you or whatever. Or you can buy them and use a book from Amazon. Buy a hymn book. The contemporary songs are good to sing in devotions too, but sometimes you can take a hymn and that can be a devotional where you can talk about the different phrases of the song, and because they're rich in theological content about God. And then you can sing them together, a cappella. You don't have to necessarily have a guitar or anything, but use your hymn book in family devotions. Reciting memory verses. Let them recite their memory verses during family devotions. Have a prayer time. That's a real part of family devotions. You can do that at bedtime too, but incorporate prayer time. Let me just say that before we get to the next point here is family devotions are real impactful. You can take the doctrine of your church, for example, and you can take one at a time. You're not going to read them, the doctrinal statement, but take one doctrine at a time, and you can pick out a couple verses in advance, look up the verse, and discuss it with them. You know, if you don't want to use a book like this, you can do that. And you're helping to learn what we believe. And so the devotional time, meal time is really great for devotions. You can do it anytime, but the good thing about meal time is everybody's there. And some people do it before, some do it after. You know, the best time, if you can keep the food warm, is to do it before. Because after meal, the kids want to get down. Before meal, they're waiting to eat. So I think it's a good time to do that even before and spend some time, some devotional time with the kids. There's a lot of resources. I put a handout there. You can look that over. But there's things you can buy. It tells where to get them and so forth. That's a whole, it came out of my book, but it's a section out of the bibliography for discipling your children at home. So there's resources there that you can use if you would like to go through certain materials with your kids. Number 13, the biggest obstacle to discipling children at home. This is the absolute biggest obstacle. Can you think what it is? There you go. Parents, it has to do with time. You know, if you take a pie chart and divide it up, you find out that by the time they do all the things that's on their back, between school and homework and extracurricular activities, there's no time left. And we've already talked about that. So time is really one of the biggest problems. That's why in our own life, I'm just telling you what we did. We started homeschooling because there was no time to disciple our kids. That's why we started homeschooling. But for parents who cannot homeschool, or don't have the time, here's some ideas here. Here's a chart. Actually, I borrowed this from Gary Hauser. This is how many hours in a day when they're 1 year old, and how many hours a day when they're 18 that you have with them. You see, the older they get, the less time you have with them. That's just the way life is. And the reason this is important is, let's take the preschool years, for example. You have so much time with your kids when they're preschoolers, unless you have them in daycare. But you know, when they're first born, except when they're sleeping, you're with them all the time. Now, maybe you put them in a Johnny jump up or some kind of chair to play a little bit, but you spend a lot more time with them when they're little like that. And the older they get, the less time you spend with them. Did you know by the time they're 5 or 6, you have spent half of the time you'll ever have with that child, half of it spent by the time they're 5 or 6. Yeah, and think about that for a minute. Your opportunities are getting less and less because half the time's already been passed, because it's the way life is. The preschool years, you have so much more opportunity. And so I would strongly encourage you, if there's any way possible, one of you be home during the preschool years. If there's any way at all, do that. Sacrifice somehow. It's so important during those preschool years to be there with your kids. Avoid preschool childcare if at all possible. And that's why I'm saying that. It could even be a Christian preschool. It's so important that parents are with the kids during the preschool years. Avoid hiring a nanny for the same reason. B, place school-age children in a strong Bible-centered Christian school. If you're going to put them in a school, don't put them in public school. Put them in a Christian school. That's much better because then they have Christian influence. Does it mean they have negative peer pressure? Yeah, they're still going to have negative peer pressure in a Christian school. But it's better than public school, even the peer pressure. But don't assume, though, that all those kids in their school are Christians. And don't assume they're all following God, because they're not. And then C, parents who have limited time with their children must protect what valuable time they have. For example, let's say, Saturday is when the kids are home. You need to try to get Saturday as your day off. Pray about it. Talk to your boss. See if somehow you can get that as a day off. I remember when I worked at for a short time, for 3 years, I worked at Home Depot. And I had a real burden about being home on Sunday, going to church with my family and all that. And I had to work every Sunday. So I prayed about it, and God gave me an idea. Nobody wanted to work on Saturday. Now, my kids were teenagers. It wasn't as important. They were off busy on Saturdays anyway. But so I said, I'll close the store every Saturday night if you'll give me Sunday as a day off. And he said, okay, I'll do that. So God gave me a way. And within a month, God gave me a position as over commercial sales in the grocery store in Home Depot, where I had 7 to 4 Monday through Friday. I had Saturday and Sunday off, and I was working 7 to 4. So God rewarded me because I was willing to sacrifice for Him, and He gave me, and plus I got $3 an hour raise in pay. So God blessed me for doing that. So time is limited. That means that you're going to have to say, I'm going to make a sacrifice. I'm not going golfing on Saturday because my kids are home. I'm not going to be in a baseball league that practices on Saturday because my kids are home. I need to focus. What little time I have, it's going to be with my wife and my kids, not for myself. When we go on vacation, I'm not going on a golfing vacation with my friends. My wife's not going on a separate vacation with her girlfriends. No, it's a family vacation. These are tremendous teaching opportunities. So you have to be strategic in how you plan to make sure what little time you have, you're spending it with your family and with your kids. So just in closing here, I was thinking I had another slide on here, but just in closing, let me just say, it tells us in Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. And I just go back to some people say, well, it means train up a child in his own way. Well, that's one way to interpret it. In other words, if they have a skill in electronics, train them to be an electrician. Well, that's important to do, but I don't really think that's what it means. For example, I'll just cite a couple theologians, John Wolverd and Roy Zook. They said that the word the word means, train up a child in a way he should go. In the Hebrew language, that means proper way. It's something deeper than just the talent that he has. The word train in the Hebrew means dedicate. It's the same word was used when they dedicated the temple. And so train up a child in the way he should go has to do with train him to have a dedicated life, a commitment. And I think it means, has to do with spiritual growth and spiritual development. So parents often say, well, I don't know what happened to my kids. I trained them in the way they should go. And if you watch their life, they took them to church all the time, and they were a relatively good example, but they didn't disciple their kids. And when they were old and their kids got 18 to 29, they dropped out of church. They dropped out of following God and the whole works. They didn't really train their child in the way they should go. And so I just want to leave this seminar by challenging you that you have one shot at this. And one of the things that we so much enjoy is we are best friends with our kids, as well as our grandkids. And we have that relationship because we discipled them. And they want to come to a family night every other week. And I'm thankful that they're in Chicago, that they can do that. Maybe they won't always have that option, but they do for right now. But you will have a profound relationship with your kids if you disciple them. And you'll never regret the time, and it is time consuming. In our case, homeschooling them, we spent a lot of hours, and Debbie especially, because I was off at work, spent a lot of hours with the kids. And it was a major sacrifice, but it paid off in huge dividends. And I'm convinced that our kids wouldn't be where they are today if we didn't homeschool, because homeschooling gave us the opportunity, gave us the time that we needed to disciple our children. There you have it. Feel free to listen to each podcast over again when you feel a refresher would be helpful. I would also encourage you to read the book where I talk about topics of disciple making, like the procedure of disciple making, a step-by-step approach, discipling children at home, how to turn small groups into disciple-making tools, and why we have failed, a course correction for revolutionary impact. By the way, let me remind you to register for one of the live Q&A sessions, and please visit my blog often. I would love you to share what God is doing through your life and how God is teaching you to make disciples of your children. Dear friends, you have the opportunity to change the landscape of eternity. Don't you agree that God wants you as parents to immerse yourselves into such an important task as discipling your children? My, what great things God can do through you and through your children as they become disciples of Jesus Christ. It's up to you, folks, and with God's help, you can do it.